President Obama decided not to attend the NAACP convention, choosing instead to send Vice President Joe Biden to address the annual conference. For more on Biden's speech and the president's snub, we turn to Fox News senior White House correspondent Wendell Goler with the report.
A day after Mitt Romney was booed by the nation's largest civil rights group, Joe Biden was preaching to the choir.
I'm a lifetime member of the NAACP.
For 16 years, the chairman or ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Biden's familiar with the group's leaders and the issues they're concerned with.
The House of Representatives Republicans voted affirmatively to prevent the Justice Department from even investigating whether or not there was voter suppression.
And he drew cheers for the president on the issue Mitt Romney was booed for.
He passed the Affordable Care Act, a goal strived for by presidents starting with Teddy Roosevelt. It required him early on to use up almost all of his political capital.
Mr. Obama himself sent a video to the conference and was criticized for not attending in person, though not by the NAACP's leadership. Reverend William Owens was critical of both.
And I think the president is making a serious mistake by taking the black vote for granted, and I think the NAACP has made a serious mistake by pandering to the president.
The White House shrugged off the president's non-attendance as a scheduling issue. He had no public events, though aides make clear his public schedule is not a measure of his workload.
He provides a video as a matter of routine to events that he doesn't attend.
Mr. Obama's support among black voters is more than 90%, but his support among a particular group of whites, men without a college education, is the lowest of any Democrat in more than 30 years, just 28% in a Washington Post ABC News poll, compared to 65% who support Romney. Polls suggest the contest is a toss-up right now among independents, which means black voter turnout could be key in battleground states like North Carolina and Virginia. On this day, Biden seemed determined to make sure black voters don't stay home for lack of enthusiasm.
It's time for the NAACP to do what it's always done. What it did for me, a young kid in Wilmington, Delaware, inspire a generation to stand up, make our case, stand our ground.
The president's back to doing his own campaigning tomorrow in Virginia. His 2008 win there, the first for a Democrat in 44 years, though the state has since elected a Republican governor and legislature. Lou?
Wendell, thank you. Wendell Goler, Fox News senior White House correspondent. For more on the president's NAACP snub and continued administration attacks on the wealthy, I'm joined by Executive Director of the Independent Women's Forum, Sabrina Schaefer, and former Special Assistant to President George W. Bush, Ron Christie. Sabrina, let me turn to you. The nonpartisan NAACP seem to be playing some favorites in their response to the vice president and to Governor Romney.
They did, and you know, I think this is one of the first times I think I've been on this show where I've said I really appreciated what Governor Romney did. Very often I said that he doesn't really take a stand. He's been a little risk averse. I think this is one of those examples this week where I think he really went out there and said, I've got nothing to lose. And I think he did a great job saying, I'm not going to speak differently to you because a lot of people here aren't going to agree with me. He spoke to the issues that he believes in, and I think he did a great job as a result of it.
And yet a number of the top officials of the NAACP were critical of Governor Romney for not tailoring his comments specifically to that audience at the convention.
Well, as if there's such a thing, Lou, as a black set of issues. These are American issues. Right. It's strengthening our economy. It's making sure that we don't get hit again by a terrorist attack and making sure that our children have the best opportunity to learn. I thought this speech was shameful on two fronts. One, the Vice President of the United States offered up his remarks, and he said, President Obama puts the country before politics, and then he launched into a speech that was inherently political. My second point is the NAACP has a tax-exempt status for not being a political organization, and they engaged in the worst form of politics today with their whooping and hollering with the Vice President's remarks.
Well, I do think that they showed at least some balance, if you will, Sabrina, when they not only booed Governor Romney when he talked about repealing Obamacare, but they also gave him a standing ovation at the end of his speech there yesterday. That was impressive.
But I suppose, but I have to agree with Ron. I mean, I really think that this is that the NAACP seems to be taking its cues from the White House, and the White House is stooping to some of the lowest level of governing. This is demagoguery. They are using everything from class warfare to race warfare to gender warfare to try to win re-election in November, and I think that is shameful.
Reaction, if you will, Ron, to the piece in the New York Times on Boston Globe, drudging up this business about Romney having stayed on at Bain longer than his exit in 1999 to take over the Olympics. What do you make of that? All of that had been rebutted by even the liberal media.
Well, I think this is shameful. And let us not forget, of course, as you just mentioned, that the Boston Globe is owned and operated by the New York Times. This has been debunked. This has been proven to be demonstrably false, that Governor Romney's tenure had ended. It seems to be nothing more than a political hatchet piece for an individual that they don't want to win the White House. And they're doing it, obviously, in support of President Obama.
And Sabrina, I find it fascinating. That the discussion here for this past week has been about not a 15% unemployment rate, if you include discouraged workers, not about the 23 to 25 million Americans who cannot find the work they seek, but it's been about, frankly, some really silly issues, side issues, frankly, to what will matter most to the country's return to prosperity.
I think that's absolutely right. I was sort of shocked. You know, I was looking at the Gallup numbers today as well, and unemployment has hovered over 8% for more than 3 years now. And the average length of time that an individual who is out of work is unemployed is for 41 weeks. I think this is what all Americans, African Americans, white Americans, you know, Jewish Americans, women, everybody, this is what people care about. They care about economic growth. They care about job creation. They don't care about Bain Capital, as we were, you know, hearing earlier. This is just not resonating with the American voter.
The race is locked up. This is a very tight race to this point. What is Governor Romney going to have to do if he can indeed break away from this president in polls?
Well, I think Wendell Guller said it exactly right in the piece preceding our conversation. I think Governor Romney is going to have to appeal to the independent voters. He's going to have to talk about his vision for the country. He's going to talk about why his policies are best for Americans and why the president's failed. And I think that's going to be the key issue. Folks are on vacation now. When we come back after Labor Day, that's when I really think this race is going to turn.
We've got to wait till Labor Day, for crying out loud. Sabrina, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And it's so interesting because right now the president's job approval is only at 46.8%. And generally when you're looking at these polls, they lean Democrat because of the way that the population that's represented. And so that is bad news for the president. And I think that, you know, this is an election for Romney to win. But he has to get out there and he has to have some definitive plans. And I think that that's what Americans want to hear.
Sabrina, thank you very much, Ron. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou.